Where you found that music? Oh yeah. Oh golly, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone has had an awesome Thursday thus far. I would like to call the Nash County Board of Education committee meetings to order. The first committee on the agenda is the Student Support Services and Operations Committee. Mr. Edwards.
Thank you. I'd like to call the Student Support Service Operation Committee to order. We'll take a roll call. Ms. Donovan Chavis. Ricky Jenkins. Dr. LaShonda Washington.
Here.
Evelyn Bullock. And obviously I'm here. That's 3 out of 5. So we got a quorum, so we're good to go. And Dr. Farrell, I'll let you have at it. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Mr. McQueen is going to come to present on a technology contract. But before he comes to present, this is not on the agenda, but I wanted to bring this up. I received late yesterday evening the contract from Evolve Weapon Detection System. It had been back and forth between the lawyers. It was finally finalized, came back. I would like to get approval to put it on the agenda for the board meeting on Monday night. Because if we are not able to get it approved, it's going to halt the process and will push us into later into the school year before the systems are able to be put in place. So I would just like to put that out there to let you all know that I would like to have approval to do that for Monday night.
Okay, we've had the discussion and we will amend the agenda.
Okay. All right, thank you. Ms. McQueen?
Can we send that contract to the board?
Yes, I will get it scanned in and get it sent to the board members.
Good evening. Tonight, I'm here to seek your approval to for a renewed contract for our VoIP phones. And we are currently in a 2-year contract with them. And actually, this would be, if this is approved, this would be our 3rd time with this particular company. And as I said before, we're in a current 2-year contract. The financial implications of this particular contract will be $132,000 for a 5-year contract. And as I stated down here, this particular company has been very good to us. I like them. I love them. And that's all. All right. And so the superintendent is recommending that this contract be approved.
You gotta take a vote on that one.
Yes. Yes.
I have reviewed the Converge Networks contract, and I recommend that we recommend approval to the full board for this contract renewal.
So I have a motion. Got a second by Ms. Bullock. We have any discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Noes? We're good to go. Thank you. All right. And in my haste, I forgot to ask about the minutes. So minutes from last time, do we all approve those?
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion to approve by Ms. Bullock, second by Dr. Washington. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes approved. Thank you. That ends it for support services.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. The next committee is the policy committee, Ms. Bullock. Evelyn Bullock, I'm sorry, for the record.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you, Chair Washington. We have several policies on the agenda for this evening, so I will get right to it. Thank you so much for being here. We will do a roll call. Lang Dunn. Here. Zach Gray. I forgot my other members.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
here,
Mr.
Sharonda. I just had it.
Edwards.
And Ms. Edwards, we have a
Yeah.
form. I apologize, I'm sorry. But thank you all for being here, for helping me out. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented to us?
I made that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented. Are there any corrections? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Minutes are approved. We have several policies for first read with substantive changes, and we'll go to those first. The first one is policy 1610/7800. Who's doing that?
Ms. Wiggins and Ms. Nancy Smith.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this particular policy, the language in the policy is staying the same, but they're adding 81.57C, which states that the districts are now going to be required to provide professional development based to carry out a statute's intent provisions regarding integrated education on the Holocaust and genocide in the middle schools, as well as the high school curriculums. So this is a state mandated professional development that's pretty much similar to like our state mandated mental health professional development, as well as like letters for elementary school educators. So that's pretty much the addition for it. And DPI is going to be developing the curriculum for the professional development. And then our role is going to be essentially rolling out and tracking the professional development as teachers are completing it.
Are there questions for Ms. Wiggins?
So it's so schools are going to be required, DPI is going to be developing professional development that's going to require social studies teachers to go through professional development that will be regarding integrating education on the Holocaust and genocide in the middle school and high school social studies curriculum.
Being taught, it's not.
Sure.
Yes. So genocide and the Holocaust are already embedded in the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. But starting next year, we have to provide professional development in the way we teach it. And ultimately, you teach it from an inquiry stance where you don't impose your personal judgments on students. And ironically, teachers have to be trained when you teach sensitive materials as such as the Holocaust. So that's the state mandate, and we're waiting on DPI to build the module so we can roll out the professional development.
Are there other questions? The next policy then is policy 3101, dual enrollment.
Hello, hope everyone's doing well. So 3101 is dual enrollment, and basically this is working through section A, our career and college promise partnership with Nash Community College. Basically, what this change is that it is required now that you do a partnership agreement, which we already have. You all approve an MOU every year or 2 years. This is required now yearly. So it is strongly recommended that this be put into policy.
Other questions? The next policy then is policy 4023/7233. With the name change, it is now being called pregnant and parenting students and employees. Who's that?
Good evening. I'm sorry, I'm not prepared for this one. That one wasn't on my roster of policy, so I'm gonna try to find it quickly. They are removing education for pregnant and parent students and employees. And basically, the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act makes it unlawful for the school system. First, fail to make reasonable accommodations to a qualified employee's known limitations related to pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, unless the school system can demonstrate that the accommodation would impose an undue hardship on the operation of the school system. 2, it also requires a qualified employee affected by pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions to accept an accommodation other than a reasonable accommodation arrived at through the interactive process. And 3, deny employment opportunities to a qualified employee based on the need to make reasonable. Based on the need to make reasonable accommodations. 4, require a qualified employee to take leave, whether paid or unpaid, if another reasonable accommodation can be provided. Or 5, take adverse action in terms, conditions, or privileges of employment against a qualified employee because the employee is requesting or using a reasonable accommodation. All of these are recommended and strongly recommended.
Are there questions for Ms. Wallace?
Yeah, I got one.
Yes, sir.
Right there, in the first line, it says the board and it says of education is being struck. Any reason for that?
Needs to be a school board recommendation.
It's a recommendation, that one is. It just says a recommendation.
Well, would board not be capitalizing? And that would take care of.
I just lost it.
Kind of, but if you look at the very bottom of the page, look what it says.
That one is a recommendation only, Mr. Edwards, based on what I see here.
I just recommend that it stay Board of Education. That way they know what you're talking about. Stays consistent throughout policy.
It just says recommended.
Well, we can change.
It may be-
Of education and just cap.
I'm gonna ask Rod.
Yes,
it-
is
it-
he here? I didn't realize he was on the call.
Yeah, he should be.
Okay.
It
Malone?
may be that board is more consistent throughout your policy manual instead of Board of Education. I'm not sure. I have to, this is Rod, by the way. I'd have to look at them again, but that may just be one that where you actually use board more consistently in the manual. It could be. Board of Education is a little strange. I don't see that a lot in most manuals.
If that be true, then Rod, would we not have board capitalized, the capital B?
And let me browse through some other policies in for a quick minute.
Okay.
I mean, I see it in different manuals, do it different ways. I know that like Wake is adopting the School Board Association manual, and they are going through and making board initial cap B. I feel like in their generic manual, it's not initial cap B, but I'll look at a couple of other policies here for a quick second.
This full, I'm looking at another policy and it refers to board in the same manner and it's lowercase.
Lord, it's.
I'm looking at discretionary admission. If you look at A, admission criteria, number 2, it refers to the board.
Okay.
So that may be the point that Mr. Malone is making, that it may be that way throughout our policies, more consistent.
For some reason, I feel like that's right. I'm just trying to pull some up, but that was a good example.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on from that and perhaps, well, that is just a technical
Yes.
part, because personally, I would think if you're calling it the board would be
Good.
uppercase. But if that's not what we've done across the board, I would hate us to have to go back and look at every policy to make that change, so.
So- I just real quickly popped into the 2000 series because that's where the board appears a lot, because it's about the board. And in the 2000 series, the first 2 or 3 I looked at, it is just the board and it is lowercase board there. So like, that's a good spot because you use the board a lot there. And it's again, and I think I'm pretty sure that if you go to the NCSBA form policy manual, it's the board and it's lowercase in most cases. And I'm guessing they just caught this one in trying to get you more consistent with what they've got in other places.
Let's go.
Are there other questions? Is it all, Ms. Long?
Yes, ma'am, for that one. Thank
All
you.
right. And then you have 4310.
So you want me to do them all while I'm here, or you want to go through your list?
I have.
Oh, I'm going, I'm sorry.
You going through the list or you going?
I'm going by my
Oh,
list,
right.
so we can make sure we get them all.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Good evening to members of the board again. I have policy 4310, integrity and civility. And it just specifies that the copying the work produced by artificial intelligence is considered plagiarism. So you can find that in number 2 there.
Other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Policy 7503. Kelly working. I see why you wanted to stay up there.
Okay. Good evening again. Okay, teleworking. There are some required changes in this one. Amount of correction to section C to provide the correct reference. It also modifies section E to reference accommodations required under the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. That one is strongly recommended, and we also have a recommended action for the legal references.
Other questions about this policy?
Okay, thank you.
Do you have another one?
I have.
What's your other one?
718.
7810, that is the next one.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Baldwin.
7810 is evaluation of licensed employees. This one is recommended and it modifies the language in number 9 just to provide clarity.
Okay, are there questions about policy 7810? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
How about policy 7815?
Yes, ma'am. That's me as well.
Okay.
Evaluation of non-licensed employees. And this policy modifies the language in the opening paragraph and in number 5, just to provide clarity, and it is recommended.
Are there questions about policy 7815? All right,
I
we'll
got
move
one.
on then to the final one with minor changes, and we'll vote at one time for all the policies, if that's okay. Policy 4130. These policies have minor changes. Usually it has something to do with just changing a date or a hyperlink.
Yeah, and I think staff asked me to go through the minor ones, and all I saw in 4130 is the deletion of a cross-reference to the grievance policy. So while they are recommending that deletion, I don't actually, and that's in the cross-reference section, I don't see any substantive change to the policy itself. So I don't think that the deletion of the reference would prevent a parent from using the grievance policy to contest a discretionary admission denial. So I certainly don't see any issues with that, the deletion of that cross-reference.
All right, questions? Policy 4155.
4155, likewise, the only change that I saw in what they were proposing is the deletion of a reference to 115C 83.1G. They're changing that reference to 115C 83.7. Again, that's not any substantive change to the policy, just that it looks like there was a statutory change and they're changing the cross reference or a reference. So I didn't have any problems with that change.
Questions? Policy 4334/5035/7345.
Again, there are no substantive changes or minor changes to the policy itself. The only changes are in the, let me get down there again. They're down in the legal references section of the policy. And this is this the drone policy? Yeah. So Mike, and again, I did not go study these, but I did know that a lot of these, when we actually drafted this policy for them originally, when we first drafted this policy, a lot of the cross references were to various regs, and I'm assuming that some of those things have just changed over time, and that they're just catching up on some of the cross references or legal references. But there are no substantive changes or minor changes to the policy itself, just the legal references. So I didn't have any concerns about it. I did not go look at all these to read them, but it didn't cause me any heartache. They study that a lot more than we do.
Policy 7340. Employee dress and appearance.
Yeah, and I think this is similar to what someone was just talking about earlier. The only change here is in the legal references. They've added a reference to the Consolidated Appropriations Act it looks like as it relates to pregnant workers fair and the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. I did not see any changes. Again, there are no changes to the actual text of the policy itself, just legal references that I'm assuming they concluded were relevant.
And the last policy in this group is policy 7650, employee travel and other expense reimbursement.
And again, no changes, minor or otherwise, in the text of the actual policy. The only changes again here are in the legal references, and they are deleting a reference and replacing it with what appears to be a similar reference. They probably just an updated reference to the budget manual. So I didn't have any concerns with this one.
We have then that concludes the policies with substantive and minor changes. Is there a motion that we recommend to the full board that we approve these policies as presented?
Made that motion.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we recommend to the full board approval of the policies listed as policies having substantive and minor changes. Are there any questions or is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. The last item on our agenda is policy number 4240 7312. Yeah. Dr. Farrell.
Yes, ma'am. So when we last talked about this policy, there were concerns, if you would look at under A, number 4. And there was concerns about the wording. Mr. McQueen, if you could go back up to number A, letter A, excuse me. And you see there, it tells you the duty to report certain crimes against children to local law enforcement. So it's naming out the things that when you are required to report certain crimes. And if you would go down to number 4, we had concerns about the words misdemeanor child abuse, because in one of the situations we had, staff did not understand, and we did not understand exactly what the criteria for misdemeanor child abuse was. And so we said that it may be better just to state or to remove that and put some other wording, which lets staff know that if any of those things happen after the comma, then it should be reported to law enforcement. And the board was going to come up with some wording there, unless you want me to go back and come up with something.
If I remember correctly, and help me if I got it all wrong, but if I remember correctly, our issue, you're right, was that we wanted to make sure that if something happened to one of our students
Yes, ma'am.
in the future, that there would not be a question as to what steps
Yes, ma'am.
that our employee should take up to and including notifying law enforcement. And looking at this, it seems to me that it covers that. But does anybody else have anything to say on that, Lane?
Thinking back to that discussion, as you noted, I think what we were trying to do was say, if we're contacting social services, we're also contacting the
Law enforcement, yes.
That right.
Yes.
and not having to decide if it's a misdemeanor.
It'd be automatic.
Yeah, we took out the may because I think may was originally in it, which made it a little bit more subjective.
We look back up, trying to see if Ms., because we haven't changed it or did anything to it. This is the policy as it was last approved by the board.
So this is the current version? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And just a point of clarification, in the particular situation that happened at Cooper's, it was reported to law enforcement. It was reported to DSS. The problem was when we went and we looked at the wording, it still was not, it wasn't clear to staff when they looked at number 4 or to us at that time what misdemeanor child abuse is. And that was the part that was confusing. We have since talked to our student support services staff, which includes school social workers, school counselors, psychologists, and we have said to them, if we have a situation where we are reporting child abuse to the Department of Social Service, report it to law enforcement as well. And that law enforcement could be if you have an SRO on campus, or if you need to call the number for law enforcement to make them aware of the situation. What they do at that point, the responsibility falls on them, but as it relates to staff, we want to make sure that we report to both because this particular policy only states when you report to law enforcement in this piece. That's my thought.
So you're not proposing a change to the policy?
We're proposing removing misdemeanor child abuse And just for it to state, when a parent or any other person providing care or supervision to a child who is under the age of 16 inflicts or allows to be inflicted physical injury and so forth.
I would like an opportunity to talk with. Did you talk to Lindsay about that? I mean, some of this is probably right out of the statute, so I don't know that I want to go deviating from the statutory requirements. I mean, there's statutory and other requirements on what gets reported.
We
And-
did talk.
Go ahead.
We did talk with Lindsay. Lindsay was aware that the board wanted to look at the wording. We're not trying to remove the requirement to report. This is aligned to the statute. So we're not looking at removing the duty to report. We just want to make it clear so that staff is not confused about what misdemeanor child abuse is.
Yeah, but I don't want to remove language from the maybe I'm not following you, but if you're saying you want to delete the term misdemeanor child abuse from the policy, I don't know that I'm a fan of that. I mean, if we want to help people understand what it means, that's a whole separate issue. But I don't know that the answer is to delete the language, which I am assuming at the moment tracks the statutory obligations.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't want to, I mean, again, if people need a definition of what it means and we need to get that so you can communicate it to people, that's one thing, but I don't want to remove what the statute says people need to do from the policy because people may not know what it means. I mean, we just need to do a better job of helping people understand what it means.
Well, can we do this, then, Mr. Malone?
That's just my thoughts. Again, I wasn't part of the original conversation,
Because
unfortunately. So
I agree with you, because when we first started this discussion, we really were zeroing in on the may part of the policy, which was not quite clear to us. So can we do this then, because we do have these questions, can we just table this till next month so we can get some clarification? And Mr. Malone has a chance to vet it to see, to make sure it meets statute. And
okay.
and go and do it next month rather than today.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we can still have it, this is June. If we do it in August, we can still have it ready for school start.
Yeah, and
that-
it's not a, I mean, even if you changed it in the middle of the year, I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
We still
Yeah,
have
so
time.
let me make sure I understand the issue. Is it all of those mays that were highlighted, or was there a particular may that was causing the concern?
The concern was that when we were talking about the incident at Cooper's, that we weren't quite clear as to whether we should have called law enforcement along with social services. If I remember correctly, that's where we were. And we wanted to clear up that language so there would not be any questions. If you see a child all bruised and banged up, you call social services and refer it to law enforcement. That was the position we were taking. And I think we might need to revisit this again.
Ron, I think we had an issue with the word misdemeanor child abuse, which,
What
yeah, which, yeah,
encompassed
we don't,
that?
that was a definition we wanted to kind of get more clarity on. From misdemeanor, I mean, there's a larger one, there's no such thing as a felony. I think Mr. Edwards was talking about, there is no felony. I mean, the misdemeanor part kind of put us in a different position to think about. So I think if me and you and Dr. Farrer can get together, we can at least try to clear up some of this.
Mhm.
I mean, what I'm guessing is that, and I can look at this, but I think the definition is what follows the comma, right? So misdemeanor child abuse, comma, which occurs when a parent or other legal person providing care inflicts or allows to be inflicted physical injury to a child by non-accidental means, or, I mean, I think the definition of what misdemeanor child abuse is what follows the comma.
Right. You're
And-
right.
And for some reason, Mr. Malone, when staff and I, we were initially looking at number 4 after the incident happened.
Okay.
Because again, the Department of Social Service was contacted, law enforcement was contacted, but as we were going back through our processes and we were looking at number 4, at that point, for some reason, misdemeanor child abuse seemed to be a standalone. So it read like it was misdemeanor child abuse or those things after, but reading it now, certainly the definition of misdemeanor child abuse follows after the comma.
Yeah, I think that is the definition. And
Yeah.
and I mean, again, so like in this reporting area, you get some immunity for being wrong, right? So you don't get punished. I mean, because this day, when you start reporting stuff like this, I mean, you do create a Pandora's box potentially, but I mean, there's all this immunity that protects you for when you make the reports. And I do think that, if you have a good faith reason to make the report to law enforcement, then you would make the report to law enforcement.
And I'm not sure if you're aware, Mr. Malone, but in this particular situation, unfortunately, there was a child who lost their life and while under the supervision of their caregiver. And so
Okay.
this is why that particular situation was of a sensitive nature, and we wanted to make sure that we were putting our staff in the position to address situations such as this in the proper manner. And again, we did contact law enforcement, but our first contact was to the Department of Social Service. And then after talking with the Department of Social Service, law enforcement and social services came to the school to meet with staff about the situation before it had escalated to the child losing their life.
Okay. And I mean, within policy and I mean, unfortunately, we can't have a policy that will address every particular situation, but I do think that, our office is always there, for you, Dr. Farrow and others, to contact if you ever have questions about what something means or whether to report or not report. I mean, we're always happy to help parse through what the requirements are and whenever that occurs. But when I look at this language here, number 4, I think it's fine as written. I'm not sure where the may is that people are.
It's not here now.
Right. I mean,
The
but
may
we,
is no longer here, that's my point. Because, Rod, in the discussions earlier, May was a part of this policy, which opened the decision as it was not a requirement that if Sally came to class and she was all bruised and beaten, May says you might call, but you really don't have to. And we wanted to remove that choice. If Sally comes in all bruised and banged up, yes, you call social services and you call law enforcement because something is not right. Now, help me with this. With that being said, if I'm the teacher and Sally comes in all bruised and banged, and I refer it to social services and law enforcement, I'm not liable for being vicious, maybe, or what's the word I want, because I'm doing it in good faith. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, there's a good faith, protection for people who make these reports. And again, I don't have all the stuff in front of me, but there is protection for people who make. Okay, great, thank you. There are protections for people who make those reports, and this people may be pointing to it now. Yeah, well, that's there you go. And I think that language is, again, is pulled from the statute that encourages that. Again, if Dr. Farrow knows where this may is that people are talking about, we can certainly take a look at that, or if it's already been removed, that may not be an issue, but I'm happy to take a look at wherever the may is that caused some concern.
Well, in the interest of time, can we do this tonight? Can we table this policy so that we have time for Dr. Ellis and Dr. Farrow and you or whoever the attorney might be to do further research on this and bring it back to us at our next policy meeting? I think that might be the better thing to do.
That sounds like a great idea to me, and it sounds like the issue, Dr. Farrell, for us to make sure we're following up on is the discretionary nature of the policy, if there's still language in it that allows that discretion. So we can certainly talk through that issue.
Yes, sir.
So is there a motion then that we table policy 4240/7312 child abuse and related threats to child safety until our next policy meeting?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we table policy 4240/7312 child abuse and related threats to child safety to our next policy meeting. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Lamb? Yes, sir.
Report to law enforcement. Most schools have an SRO now. Do we report the SRO, or do one special number we call at the sheriff's office? We need to be clear.
What
Let
law
the staff
enforcement
know.
is? I assume
Because
SRO,
it might
but
be some miscommunication at the sheriff's office.
It's either or, and we sent, like I said, after the situation happened, we sent out an email to all of our principals, assistant principals, and our student support services staff, explaining to them the process to take, even speaking about you could report to your SRO if an SRO is on campus, or you have an SRO who you can make contact with, or you could just call law enforcement.
are there other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. We'll see you next month on that same
Yes, ma'am.
policy. All right, this ends our agenda items for today. I declare the meeting adjourned if there's no further business.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bullock, and we're gonna change our order here just a little bit. Next up is the Academic Services and Accountability Committee. Ms. Thomas Bullock.
Good evening. At this time, I will call the Academic Services and Accountability Committee to order. Dr. Washington here. Zach Gray.
Here.
Mr. Bissett is not here. Mr. Lamb.
Here.
And I am here. All right, so the first thing we'll do is approve the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for April 24th, 2023? Thanks. Moved by, Mr. Gray. Moved by Mr. Gray, seconded by Mr. Lamb. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? Okay, it is approved. So the first item that we have, textbook update. Ms. Nancy Smith.
Good evening. Nash County Public Schools provides all teachers and students with evidence-based, engaging curriculum materials that align with the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. Last month, I stood in front of you and shared recommendations for our 23 23-24 textbook adoption. The core instructional resource materials for 612 English Language Arts, Math, and Social Studies will expire June 30th, 2023. These curriculum resources include both teacher and student print and digital materials. They are designed to foster engagement and support teaching and learning. The instructional materials are provided by HMH, which is Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, Savis, Gibbs Smith, and also Savis will provide social studies for 612 and Carnegie Math. This request is to adopt teacher and student materials for implementation beginning in the 23-24 school year. I also shared with you 2 contracts. Just as Dr. Farrow has requested to add 2 contracts to Monday's agenda, it is important that all contracts are in the board's hand by June, as it will slow down the shipment of the resources. We are waiting on 2 contracts. Those contracts are for Savis and HMH. I have been in contact with the representatives and shared with them that I really need these by tomorrow so we can go ahead and get them to the board no later than Monday. The estimated cost to adopt these new core curriculum materials for middle grades and high school students and teachers for next school year will be $1.8 million. The anticipated funding sources are low wealth and textbook recommendation and textbook funds. The superintendent recommends the approval of the middle grades and high school textbook selections, which is our core curriculum, and its implementation for the 23-24 school year as presented. Are there any questions?
If there are no questions, then I will entertain a motion to adopt this to bring before the full board.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Dr. Washington? Yes. Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So it is approved and will go before the full board.
And Dr. Washington, if the other 2 contracts come in, we can add them on Monday.
Correct. We can amend the agenda to add those approval items on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next we will have Ms. Hargrove Jones.
Good evening. I stand before you this evening to request the approval for the purchase to renew online access for teachers for our core reading and math resources, also consumable student materials for our math and reading resources in K-5. The fiscal implications, the total cost for these materials, K-5, is $424,000, $954.48. If you break that down, that's really $105 per teacher for reading and math, approximately $20 per student for reading and $25 for math. These are curriculum materials that our students in K-5 have been using for the past several years. This is just a renewal for the 23-24 school year. So the superintendent submits this purchase for approval.
Any questions? Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I'll vote. Dr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
And I am a yes. All right, so it has been approved and will go before the full board. And next we have also Ms. Hargrove Jones.
That's right.
Summer Stones Academy.
Okay, so this one I feel like I say I'm excited about everything I present, but I really am excited about this. So I'm pleased to announce that once again, Nash County Public Schools will be able to offer extended learning opportunities for students pre-K through 12. So whenever we're talking about our academic initiatives and what we do, we like to go back to our why. And we do this with our teachers, our principals, whenever we meet. And it's really about providing those high quality academic and social experiences for all. And that's what we'll do this summer with Summer Scholars Academy 2023. Those are our 5 areas of focus. So we're really focusing on that academic success and also accountable district operations with our summer programs. The first summer opportunity that we have is a summer testing opportunity for our students in grades 3 through 12. So every student who is passing the course for their subject, their course subjects. However, they score non-proficient on the end of grade or end of course test, will be invited to participate in this summer testing opportunity. We cannot call it a retest. That will happen June 5th through the 9th. So the 5th and the 6th will be remediation days. We will actually use June 7th, 8th, and 9th for testing days. So the instructional day for those remediation days, you see the times up on the screen. The next slide just explains that whole legislation with who we can offer this summer testing opportunity to. So we have many camps that are going on to serve our students pre-K through 12 this year. One of the first ones is the WIN Academy that will actually start in June. So summer starting in June, the largest camp is starting in July. It'll be June 12th through the 30th, Monday through Friday. This is open for high school graduates by invitation only. The hours are 7:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. WIN Academy actually stands for Work in Nash. So this is a partnership with Nash Community College, and it'll be held at the 4 high schools that you see listed. 20 graduated students are invited to participate at each high school. We're providing transportation, and it's really to focus on those job-related soft skills and earning credentials and college credit. And it is free of cost for our students. Also, there are a number of CTE summer camps. And Mr. Thompson, if I leave anything out, please jump in. We have the Career Exploration Mini Camp for our rising 6th grade students, our current 5th grade students, held at our middle schools. That starts in June. There's also a Career Engagement Bridge Camp for rising 9th grade students, June 12th through the 29th. And there's a career credentialing and work-based camp for rising 10th through 12th grade students. So there's opportunity for students to really engage in CTE this summer. We will also have our Migrant Education Summer Program, which will be held at Nashville Elementary. It will run June 26th through August 3rd. All of these camps will take that week of the 4th of July off in those dates from 8 o'clock to 2 p.m. So that program will provide breakfast, lunch, and snacks for students and also transportation. Our largest camp is our Summer Scholars Academy 2023. Now that will run July 10th through August 3rd. The schedules, our elementary students will go from 8 to 1. Our secondary students will participate from 9 to 1:30. When we look at our data from the end of the year, these are the numbers of the students that we're inviting, and that's approximate. So we have approximately 2,836 students that we've offered an invitation to participate in Summer Scholars Academy at each level. When we look at it, we try to keep our numbers kind of low for these classes. So we need approximately, we have hired approximately 171 teachers to actually serve in this program. So student invitations have gone home. Teachers have been notified of their employment and where they will work and what grade levels they were served for Summer Scholars Academy. Here are our summer learning sites. So we will have our Summer Scholars Academy at 7 of our elementary schools. We will use 4 of our middle schools and then 6 of our high schools. So we have students from all schools invited, but we're just putting them at those base schools for this Summer Scholars Academy. These sites will serve as summer feeding program schools. So meals will be served, breakfast and lunch, and all sites will be open to the public with the exception of Nashville Elementary and Southern Nash Middle School. Meals at these sites will be free for children 0 through 18. So thinking about who is eligible for Summer Scholars Academy and who we invited at each level. For our pre-K, all of our current pre-K students who will attend kindergarten next school year were invited to Summer Scholars Academy. For K2, we looked at their end of year reading foundation literacy assessment DIBELS to decide who to invite. So we invited our students that were scoring below and well below benchmark. For 3rd grade, that is really, 2nd and 3rd grade are the grades where this camp is really guided by legislation, who we invite. So any of our 3rd grade students who have not demonstrated reading proficiency as defined by Read to Achieve legislation are invited. For 4th and 5th grade, we continue with reading, and we're looking at students who have identified gaps in reading. For middle school, that camp will be based on math. So we're looking for identified gaps in math. And high school, it's really about credit recovery. So those slots will be offered. They have a set number of slots, and they're offered to seniors first, then juniors, then sophomores, and then freshman students. So for elementary, we're gonna spice it up this year. It's not just reading. We actually are gonna do STEM and reading. So it's our reading robotics camp that we're really excited about. Students will use some of the reading materials that they've used throughout the year with Letterland and their wit and wisdom text, but they will also use STEM, the Wonderkins, the Robo Wonderkins robotics. That is really coding. For students, it's really K2, but we're extending it for 3 through 5 for the summer. It's really neat to see students coding and building robots in the media center, and also Z-Space learning stations, which are really 3D animated learning stations for students. For middle school, they're focusing on math, so they will use some of the math materials that they have throughout the year, along with math games, and also they will focus on STEM as well. With the materials that you see here, there's some robotics infused in that as well, and they will have time for independent reading and journaling. We offer an adaptive program for our students in our adaptive classes. Their theme this year is By the Sea. And they're continuing with STEM in their camps as well. And they will use their unique learning system that they use throughout the school year. So we're not just, if we go back to our why, it's not all just about academics, but it's about the social and emotional well-being of our students. So these are the supports that we have in place for this summer to address the whole child during Summer Scholars Academy. So we'll still have that individual on-site student support for small groups. We'll have nurses to support social workers, also mental health support. If students have started this, they can continue over the summer, and we will have the ability to provide threat and suicide risk assessments if those things pop up, and they often do during the summer as well. One of the newest things for our Summer Scholars Academy that we're really, really excited about is we're going to hire student interns to help us with this Summer Scholars Academy. So we'll hire an intern to serve at each of the elementary and middle sites. We have called for either college juniors, seniors, or recent graduates who are majoring in public services, people who will eventually, we hope, come back and help our district. So it's kind of a recruitment and training to get these young college students or recent graduates in to see the inner workings of our school, to help us out, and then come back and hopefully be people that we can employ. So we just put this flyer out last week. We've garnered a whole lot of interest, way more than we initially anticipated, but we are excited about doing that this summer. The one item for Summer Scholars Academy that does need an approval from the board is for our Read to Achieve, that second and third grade camp that is driven by legislation. We must offer a sign-in bonus. And it says that that sign-in bonus, teachers have to meet those three criteria in order to be considered for the bonus, but the bonus must be at least $1,200 to sign to work the entire program. And we must also offer a performance bonus. So if they teach third grade, for every student that meets proficiency during the camp, they can receive at least a bonus of $150 per student. So that is what we are proposing, that we offer the $1,200 and then the $150 per third grade student for SSA. Right, are there any questions about Summer Scholars Academy 2023? Okay. And let me just say before I even go into the vote, how important it is and how much I appreciate us really differentiating and scaffolding. I think people often think when they don't work in education that you should have one answer to solving the issues that we have, and there is no one answer. So thank you so much for all that you're doing and pouring into. I know my students at home, actually, two of my daughters who are old enough to take EOG, actually both went to the after school tutoring, and both went up at least one point. And I mean, from a 2 to a 3 or 3, my oldest daughter got a 5 in science. So thank you for all the things that you're doing. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's great to hear. Yes. And they often fly under the radar, and that's a whole different thing. So thank you for all that you do. You are welcome. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept and approve to go before the full board.
Second.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. I'll take a vote. Dr. Washington? Yes. Zach Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so it is approved to go before the full board. Thank you. Next up is Mr. Thompson, field trips.
All right, good evening again. So for June, we have 5 field trips. We have 4 overnight, which are camps, and we have 1 out of state, which is with our migrant program. And the superintendent is requesting this for approval.
Do you have any questions? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I do have a question. I know there was concern that we had when we had an overnight trip previously about chaperones, if there was 1 female, 1 male to take care of all of those concerns.
Yes, we are in compliance with that. The only thing we have here is we have a football team going, it's full males.
Okay.
So there are 5 males there.
All right.
So. Yep.
And I did have one other question too. I forgot about that. It said private vehicle for the 14 that are going to
Yes, those will be parents. We'll
Parents,
be
okay.
taking those. Yes.
all right. So I will entertain a motion to approve so that it will go before the full board. I recommend approval of the field trips to the full board. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded and will go before the full board. Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Madam Chairperson, can I ask you a couple of questions before we move from our committee? I know that we offered parents, Ms. Dancy Smith, I know we offered parents an opportunity to peruse materials. Did we see parents do anything or?
We actually did not. We opened up the central office And we also set up a center at the Teacher Resource Center.
Okay.
And we sent out a survey. So the PAC parents, which are the parent ambassadors, to give us some feedback as well. And when I checked yesterday, we had about 2 to give us some really good feedback as we plan our parent meetings for the fall.
Like, so opportunity was given. And-
Yes.
Okay, that's one.
Thank you.
And one more question. Oh, no, for Miss Monique Hargrove Jones. I'm sorry, y'all. My processing is a little slower. With some of the academies, especially I think the ones for enrichment for the middle schools and high schools, are certain students targeted, or is it open for everyone for those? How is that?
Mr. Thompson, did you want to handle the CTE?
Yes,
Is it open to?
So this year, what we did is open to all students. So any student could apply. If you see back on our flyer, we had apply here.
Yes, sir.
And it's actually not apply. It's if you submit your piece, you would get in. So at this time, we have in the mini camp, 80, right at 80 students. And at our bridge camp, I think we're sitting at maybe 60 right now. And so it was open, announced in many venues, put on our websites. So we called home and actually had an email sent to all parents in those age range. So yeah, we gave everyone opportunities.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Mr. Thompson shared with you the number of families who are interested in these things, and they don't have to pay for them. Just know that we're using ESSER dollars. We want to be good stewards of the money. We're using ESSER dollars to pay for these camps. And the money sunset next September, I believe. So once we use up this money, we will not be able to provide these type of enrichment camps to our community as a district.
So we can find some other funds.
Yes.
We won't-
Yes.
it's not that we won't be able to offer, we just need to find other
Right. We
funding.
need to reallocate funding
Okay.
to take care of it.
Thank you all.
And did I take a vote? I don't think I took a vote. All those who approved that last vote, I'm not sure. I think
You did.
I did, okay. But I don't think I actually voted, so, I got a motion for the field trip, then, and he made a second, so, all those who are in favor, approved by the voting sign of aye. Aye. And all those opposed? Okay. All right, so next is Ms. Griffin with the request for research.
That'll be very quick. Good evening.
Good evening.
We have one request for research this month. Cheryl Thomas, who is a doctoral student at Fayetteville State University, is requesting to conduct research on exploring the relationship between mindset and self-efficacy in middle school teachers. Can't say that very fast, can I? That'll be a 50. Her plan is to use a 15-question survey to research. Her research hopes to gain a better understanding of the possible relationship between mindset and self-efficacy in middle school teachers. The superintendent has approved this research, and this is for information only. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? So if there are no other questions, I will adjourn.
Thank you. And our final meeting for tonight is the Administrative Services and Operations Committee, Mr. Sharp.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the administrative meeting to order, please. I have motion to approve last month's meeting agenda minutes.
So moved.
Move to probably second. Questions or discussion? Hearing none. Make the motion.
I made the motion.
Thank you, man. Next item on the agenda is Mr. Hale.
Good evening. Superintendent is requesting committee approval of the following budget amendments to take to the full board. State Amendment number 105, Current Expense Amendment number 205, Federal Grants Amendment number 305, Capital Outlay Amendment number 404, School Nutrition Amendment number 501, and Fund 8 Donations and Grants Fund Amendment number 803. These amendments were provided to you in your packet.
I need a motion, please, to present this to the full board.
Second.
Been probably moved by Franklin Lamb, seconded by Sharonda Bullock. Question or discussion? Hearing none, all of in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Ayes carried. Next item on the agenda is the budget or the superintendent's authority.
Yes, would like to request superintendent authority to approve end of the year amendments to avoid having to convene a special board meeting to approve those amendments.
I need a motion to approve it.
So moved.
It's been probably moved by Mr. Lamb, seconded by Knight. Questions or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. So carried.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is continuation budget resolution. Mr. Hill.
Yes, the superintendent is requesting approval for to take to the full board for an interim budget for next year to continue spending at the current level in the absence of an approved budget.
I need a motion to approve that.
Second.
It's been probably moved by Mr. Lamb, seconded by Donovan Tavis. Questions or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? So carried. Thank you, Mr. Hale.
Thank you, sir.
Angela Miller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mine is for information at this
Good
time,
evening.
and it is in reference to the conversation around playground equipment. And I posted in the information 2 plans. I'll go over them very briefly. One is Plan A would be $100,000 per year. You'll see I put funding source question. It has not been budgeted for at this time. Operations, which is our maintenance and operations, would present the school with a guideline, which would be guidelines for choosing the equipment, and a book that is a standard book when purchasing, not like playground equipment or something that you got ordered from Amazon. It would be playground equipment like you were sustaining a school supplies. They would also, the school would have a committee that would purchase in addition to what we would provide for them. The principal would get the information to the operations team for ordering. The timeline is listed here for September, each school getting $25,000. Maintenance and operation outside of this budget would do the border timber and the mulch. The timeline would look like an order in September, install November, December. And the only difference in the 2 plans, one is 100,000, one is 75,000. The 100,000 has 4 schools until the last rotation, and then the other one is 3 schools. This is for information only. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
It's $25,000 enough to purchase anything?
It would vary based on the school and their needs. It's not a lot of money because of the expense for equipment. So if you had a complete overhaul with nothing intact, possibly $200,000. But a lot of times this schools are looking for 1 or 2 pieces to add to what they already have. So I know that's a big window, but if you had cleared land, you're looking at a $200,000 budget item for a playground.
Was there a thought that we could do this the way we used to? I don't even know if we do it now or not, but the way we used to do the bands, and just let the schools accrue money until they get enough to purchase a big item?
So
Is
that,
a possibility?
so that would be certainly your decision. That's hard to keep track of if you want me to be
Is it
real
not?
honest. So looking at this and feel free to, we'll brainstorm this, but with like football uniforms, rotations and how that looks very different when it comes to band uniforms and equipment for playground because they're very large expenses. I can't just buy one item. So with the band, with the accumulation, if you remember probably 7, 8 years ago, it got off rotation because of transition of people in different places. And that money was not, we can't just give money to a school and let them earn interest. That it doesn't work like that. So it makes it very difficult with the fundraising piece. This would enable them to get the money and have a team of people. Let me just say, if I'm a person that knows that 4 years out, I just keep the committee as the principal and keep it ongoing. But they would have to make some sort of purchase that may be small and then look at the larger items at the end.
Okay, just a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I think the thought process on that was with the PTO, PTA, whatever they call them.
Yes, sir.
Their roles and responsibility, take up the ownership of their schools and actually providing this is just a stimulus for that group to help them along the way. I think that was the thought process. Mr. Lamb.
Can we use any extra money for any of this?
That's a good question. And that cannot be used for this because that's already been, budgeted for and that will end next year.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So I like the plan. I like both options, we can sit down and discuss those. My issue would be that there are certain schools that are starting here, and even if they get, the $25,000, so could this be 23, 24, we're going to do Hubbard and Inglewood, and we give them the 50,000, and then following that year, we continue on that track so that we're all on the same playing field, because I feel like right now, they don't have, if they don't have the same equipment as the other schools, giving them $25,000 it's not equitable, I guess, for the school. So can we have a plan to say, hey, these schools need it first, and then after that, follow plan A or plan B, whichever is best, but can we start with the schools who need it the most and then work our way?
And we can look at that any way that you'd like to see fit. So the way this was characterized at the bottom, you'll see the schools that have the newest equipment in both of these categories. So depending on how much you want to put, if you choose to move this or have this as an action item and what you want the plan to look like, the feedback and the information that you guys give us at this point, because realistically, if this was September 1, as soon as they get back to school and they start a plan, their fundraising efforts are going to be minimal for a month. I'm not sure exactly which direction you would choose to go, but
And the only, I know Ms. Miller knows my concern. So when I think of playground equipment, if you're gonna place a few chairs in a school, that's fine, but you can't place all of them the way our budget is. So this is not budgeted. So the funding source is gonna be a capital outlay, which is not in it, which means you're taking money out of capital outlay that was already designated possibly for a roof or something
Projects.
else. Or I have to go to Doug. I'm looking over there right now. And we got to create a line item, just like I'm assuming you did with the bands, but it's going to be fund balance. Doug, if I'm wrong, but you're talking about a expense. It's not a state budget, it's not a federal. This is going to be local dollars that'll be coming to start this process.
And we already know local dollars will probably be flat.
Can we partner with Nash County Recreation, because some of this playground, a lot of places, it's open to the public, and not only just people in school use it, entire families use it. That might be a funding source we might need or try to tap into. I know some of the playground equipment at Spring Hope is bought in 2002, still great shape, but the community also uses it because it's open all the time.
yes, sir. In all cases, with the partnership with communities, all playground equipment is going to be accessible, and that is some of the maintaining piece that, safety comes into play. So, yes, sir.
No, it hadn't been pursued as far as the town of Spring Hope wants to, or Nash County Parks and Recreation want to donate equipment or funding. Because I know A lot of small towns, playground equipment is limited, but it is used continuously.
Like, no, go ahead and talk about it.
Am I right that Mr. Davis provided through our supplier 3 options from about 25,000 to 40,000 for school playground sets?
I think there was 3 or 4 items that had listed.
That we cover this, I guess, at 25,000, and then as the PTOs wanted to supplement and do larger pieces, I know you said 200 on it.
Well, and that was if it was just ground land with nothing in place. And I ran that over, I mean, you know, before Mr. Davis left, we had talked about the 25,000, but it would still take a funding source in addition to that with PTOs. And just like Dr. Ellis said, the next part of mine was, as I questioned funding source, capital outlay, which is going to mean if something breaks, it has not been budgeted for, as well as fund balance. And we've already got a budget as well.
Dr. Washington.
I was just going to ask if it's possible that just like we're proactive in securing grant funding for other initiatives, if we can be proactive in securing grant funding for this. Play isn't, I'm in no way downgrading academics, but play is an important part of the student's day. And so I would want us, and there's some schools that don't have anything, so I would want us to expeditiously try to resolve this and look for funding sources for the play equipment.
I'll just input my 2 cents on this. I think it behooves the PTOs and PTAs, whatever organization you call them, to take ownership. They're a school, and some of them do a tremendous job of doing that. So basically, I think with the workload that your group has, I think if we communicate that back to the principals, to the PTO, Franklin, I thought had a great idea of just making sure that they're communicating with the communities. No one knows the community better than the PTOs. So they're engaged in those communities, let them get engaged, because you're right, because of capital outlay, there's a whole lot of things that we got to be paying for when it comes to these buildings and facilities. I think the ownership needs to go back to PTOs and PTAs, or whatever we call it today, but we need to communicate that through the principals to those groups.
So just real quickly, I'll speak on behalf of Inglewood. I know they've raised the pot of money.
That's right.
They're trying to see what we can do to match a portion of it, and then they would like to choose from one of those 3 options because they have none. I mean,
Right.
They have both.
I speak, but I've been in Inglewood as well too. And what's been exciting about that, they're driving, doing something, they're making things happen.
And I think that's a great idea for some schools, and I think for some schools that will work. There are other schools that will not work, just because of I'd say the demographics of that particular school that won't be possible. So I think for some schools, I think that's great. But we have to consider that we support all the schools. So taking that ownership, we still have to have a hand in ownership of what we can do. We can ask all the schools to support, but we can't say that there are a lot of schools who aren't going to be able to raise those types of funds.
And we must also remember that these are our schools, and the responsibility ultimately belongs to us, or at least that's the way I see it. If the PTOs are fortunate enough to be able to raise some funds to help the cause, super. But I don't think we
Can be that.
can escape our responsibility.
Any other questions?
Like to make a motion. I mean, I know this is for information only, but I feel like I'd like to come out of this committee meeting with a path. But, you know.
Well, I don't know, Mrs. Miller, your team's putting together more information as far as, so we don't have all the data, what they're gathering. This is just for information. Are we looking further in depth as far as other processes, or is this? And the reason I'm asking, if this is not it, if this is it, this could have been an action item instead of information on.
So we brought it because I think when Mr. Dutton asked us to bring something to the board, you know, I think moving forward, if you want us in our August meeting or in July, it's not going to be that big of a difference. I think we were going to do installation anyway. in the winter, like kind of sort of fall.
It's fall, November to February.
Mr. Davis told us the ordering of the equipment doesn't take that long. So if you want to plan, I just want to make sure, I want you to vote on where we're getting the money from. Is it gonna be a continuation of this budget? Or we're gonna do this for 4 years, or we're gonna keep doing it, we're gonna just keep rolling it. In my opinion, I think once we get these elementary playgrounds done, Lam, you talked about how long that equipment lasts. I really think once we get it up to speed, then we can pull back.
You know, it goes back, a lot of times you get what you pay for.
Right, and I think that's why
That's
Mr.
right.
Davis was so adamant about, let's use the same company we've used everyone else.
That's right.
And if we can just maintain it that way, push in 4 years of getting it done, then we could probably step back and start seeing what we had.
I like that. I just want to add, I just want to make sure that those schools who are, who have the least can start first. And I know that you
Right.
said that was down at the bottom. I just want to make sure that priority.
I think Mr. Davis on the first three, he said
Yeah.
these are the ones.
These are the ones that are in high need. That is correct. And the reason that we would facilitate the plan would be so we could monitor what was being chosen. So it would have the 10 to 15 to 20-year lifespan.
We can bring this up.
All right. But even like you said, some of the schools that are less fortunate, they still play a big role because once you put a $40,000 piece of equipment, it's up to the community because we've had people call the police in Spring Hope if they see somebody abusing what's going on. You know, once you pay $40,000 for a piece of equipment, you can't replace it every year.
That's why I talked about more ownership. Because you can put the stuff out there. And it can be $100,000, people are taking it apart and doing everything else. You just invest $100,000 and it just went down. Right, because if you pay for it, you're gonna take ownership of it. If somebody else pay for it, it's not mine. Thank you, man. Demerger, Dr. Ellis.
I thought I would have more, but I'll read it for you. The meeting that me and Dr. Washington normally attend monthly was canceled. It has not been rescheduled with the Nash and Edgecombe commissioners and the board. So we don't have any real new information. There was a facilities visit last Wednesday, May 24th. Mr. Sharp, who is their transition coordinator from Edgecombe, visited. And their facilities director and their assistant director came. Me and Miss Miller and our facilities people were there. We visited Fairview, DS Johnson Park, and Baskerville. There will be an initial visit, I think, of TRC in the upcoming weeks. I think they wanted to see that. It was a good visit. Beginning June 12th, Mr. Sharp and I are going to start meeting, not that Mr. Sharp.
Yeah, I can't.
And Mr. Sharp is going to start, we're going to start nailing some deadlines and timelines and talk about what students and teachers and staff are involved. So that'll start probably right after graduation. My goal and our cabinet's goal is to have a timeline to present to you in the August board meeting. Because we just feel like it's time for us to get a timeline. You're gonna need it. That'll be something we present at the board meeting. Senior staff plans to visit the 4 schools involved in the demerger next week, June 7th. We're going to be talking to their staffs just to give them an update of what we know about the demerger.
So with that said, I just want to bring attention to, you guys all received your email from Rob Black. What's going on with that? So that's all I have, Dr. Washington.
All right, if there's no further business, you could just do your motion.
I need a motion to adjourn the committee meeting.
So moved.
It's been, you said I had 2 so moved.
Donovan.
You seconded it? It's been probably moved by Dr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Lamb. Question on the discussion, here none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, so carried.
There's no further business to come before the board this evening. Have a great evening. Thank you.